Sometimes it's not hard to come to the conclusion that our legal system and many in the political establishment nearly always want to make excuses for people taking advantage of Australia's generosity. Yesterday, former High Court Judge Ian Callanan brought down his long-awaited report into the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, and what he found shows exactly why the AAT is in urgent need of reform. In the past 2 years, the facts reveal that migration cases have doubled, invariably because boat people and others with no right to stay in Australia are challenging official deportation orders. Of the 38,000 migration and refugee applications lodged last year, less than half were finalised. Now, because this is usually why applicants sought extensions of time and claim to have new evidence. Many, of course, they'll get to keep staying here, and the longer they stay here on automatic bridging visas, well, it's more likely that the system will eventually wave them through. Certainly that's been a sorry practice to date. The basic problem is that the rules designed to ensure that justice is done end up ensuring that nothing happens quickly, which in turn falls foul of the old legal adage that justice delayed is justice denied, at least to any honest, decent applicant whose case is delayed by the shysters who are working the system to their advantage, often, I might add, with taxpayer-funded legal support. People whose requests to stay have been denied, well, they can first appeal up the line within the Immigration Department, then to the AAT, then to the Federal Circuit Court, then to the Federal Court, and sometimes even to the High Court. At each level, there is almost indefinite potential for delay because adjournments are routine and there are few, if any, time limits on hearings or strict deadlines for the provision of information. It is in the nature of the legal system to allow more time, and it's in the nature of lawyers to take more time. Let's not forget they charge in 6-minute blocks, of course, and the Parliament, unless the Parliament calls time, this is a system that is ludicrously biased against the national interest. Then there's my old Sky News sparring partner, Kristina Keneally. The failed former Premier who used to demand that offshore processing end and who called the policy that stopped the boats selfish. She called it xenophobic. She called it even petulant. Well, she's now in charge of setting Labor's attitude to border protection as the opposition's Home Affairs Shadow Minister. Keneally reckons that the 2-year temporary exclusion orders designed to keep potential terrorists out of the country that Labor reluctantly agreed to in the House of Reps yesterday, she reckons they're there to give us time to prepare to receive these people back into the country. Here she is on Sky News earlier today.
Well, it's right that we have a scheme that manages the return of foreign fighters, and that's really what this legislation does. It's called temporary exclusion orders, but what they really do is set the conditions for foreign fighters to return on a certain date and time and on a certain flight, and then with a prescribed set of conditions. And it is necessary that we have a scheme like that.
No, Kristina. They're not banned from coming back here for 2 years because they've taken up arms against our country and our values. And if they came back, there's every risk they would use what they've learned overseas here at home. The 2 years isn't for you and others to roll out the red carpet. The 2 years is so that officials can use that time to get the evidence needed to lock them up for good. And more strength to Peter Dutton's arm here and to our security agencies. You've got to wonder who was the factional brains trust who pushed for Keneally to get the Home Affairs portfolio after the May election loss, don't you? I mean, she is completely out of her depth and doesn't believe in strong borders in the first place. We might be a generous country when it comes to settling refugees, provided, of course, they've come the right way. But Australians don't like people taking advantage of the system. And voters don't like political parties that flip-flop or say one thing but do another. So far, Labor has attacked the tax cuts, then passed them. It's attacked the drought package, then passed it. It's condemned temporary exclusion orders, then sort of supported them, at least through the House, bearing in mind they're still to vote on them in the Senate. We'll wait and see what happens there. Now, some might say this flip-flopping is smart politics. pandering to Labor's base, but not finally standing in the government's way. Really? To me, it looks like an internally divided opposition. It looks like a leader that isn't leading. It looks like a strategy that's hardly anything but strategic. And it looks like a Labor Party that just doesn't know where it stands on the big issues facing our country or what indeed it even believes in.